Avez-vous vu? Avez-vous vu? How the fuck do you say that? Bonjour. Avez-vous vu chauffeur de taxi? I have. And like a lot of young men, I misinterpreted it completely when I first watched it. Also, I'm really sorry if I butchered the French there. I got off of Google Translate, I'm sorry. I first saw the film when I was in my early teens, and honestly, I thought Travis was really cool. I wanted to make a sliding revolver thing so badly. Not for the same purpose, to be fair. I just wanted to go as Travis for Halloween and thought it'd be a really cool project. Like a lot of young men, I kind of idolised Travis. He was a hero on the edge, with so many guns and a sick mohawk. Shit was cool back in the day. When you're young, the idea of morality is pretty black and white. The good guys are the main characters and the bad guys have Russian accents and are the antagonist of the film. It doesn't really occur to you when you're 13 that maybe things are a bit more grey. Like, I kind of just chose to ignore the scene where he takes his date to a porn theatre and how much of a creep Travis reveals himself to be in this scene. I thought he was doing the right thing at the end of the film when he, quote unquote, saves the prostitute, Iris, even though she doesn't ask for help. Travis just butts his way into a problem that isn't his out of some misguided hero complex. There are a lot of characters like this throughout pop culture, the most modern example being Joaquin Phoenix's Joker. In my view, you aren't meant to idolise Joker, but a lot of people I talked to disagreed. Even friends of mine who didn't like the film felt like the Joker was written to become some sort of revolutionary figure. I think Travis Bickle is the earliest example of this pop culture phenomenon, or at least I can't think of any earlier examples. And since the film's release, teenage boys have hung posters of him in their rooms. Not the posters of the actual, the film poster, but like that kind of unofficial looking poster of Travis with the two guns pointed at the camera. And to me, that just speaks volumes. It's a common thing amongst young men to idolise Travis, and I can't think of a better character who's done the same than Vinz from Mathieu Kassovitz' HAINE. Where is the DVD? There you go. HAINE is a French film from the mid-90s about three young men from housing estates meandering through the streets of Paris. When their friend Abdel is shot by the police, riots ensue, causing high tension between the police and working class youths. Meanwhile, word on the street is that a police officer lost his gun during the riots, and who would find it but our boy Vinz? In our introduction to Vinz, we find out that he is a young Jewish man who lives with his family in a housing estate, and that he is a big fan of Taxi Driver. It isn't definitively stated, so this is partly speculation, but in his introduction scene, we see him looking at himself in the mirror and reenacting the iconic "You talking to me" monologue. With this scene, Kassovitz tells us so much about Vinz without directly telling us anything. This scene could be dismissed as a simple reference to Taxi Driver, but I think because Kassovitz uses it to introduce us to the character, it adds a lot of significance to it. In this scene, we see Vinz in a vulnerable state. He's in a private setting and allowing himself to let his violent fantasies run amok, just as Travis was in his monologue. This monologue from Taxi Driver could seem really cool to someone who misinterpreted the film. I mean, I thought it was cool when I was younger. If you're watching Taxi Driver through a clearer lens, you see just how unhinged Travis is in this scene. His eyes are unblinking, and unlike Vinz, who has this adolescent vigour, Travis is just crazed. The clear difference is in the dialogue. Vinz is imagining a self-defense scenario. A group of casuals are starting on him and presumably his friends as he looks side to side. He smugly dismisses their threats and pretends to pull out a gun, pretending to kill one of the attackers. Vince's age is indeterminate, but it's hinted at that he is in his adolescence, possibly early 20s. These fantasies come from a place of frustration, as his friend Abdel lies in a hospital bed, gunned down by people who were meant to protect him. On the other hand, Travis Bickle literally says, "You must be talking to me. There's no one else here." For Travis, this isn't a self-defense fantasy. It's revealed that Travis was talking to his Palantine campaign poster, which confirms his plan to murder the senator later on in the film, further cementing the idea that for Travis, his monologue wasn't just a childlike fantasy, it's more like a dress rehearsal, and a very worrying look into the character's psyche. In the third act of La Haine, Vinz and his friends Saeed and Hubert get separated when they are stalked by some police officers. Vinz manages to escape and hides in a cinema, where he goes from screening to screening, watching different films. You never see what he is watching, but you can tell from the sound effects it's a mix of action and horror. Fun fact, in the second film he watches, they use the sound effect of the blood jumping out of the petri dish from The Thing. That's not really relevant, but I noticed it on my last watch and I thought it was cool. The scene is reminiscent of Travis watching porn in the theatre. Both of them seem bored, like they're tired of simulated violence and sex. I believe this is Kassovitz trying to create a stronger connection between the two characters and give the audience the idea that Vinz is about to pop off, so to speak. A couple of scenes later we see Vinz witnessing real violence, with an amazing shot that allows the viewer to see both the action and the reaction. This alone is an amazing use of filming technique, but there is a bit more purpose behind it. The shot is in direct contrast to the close-up of Vinz we see at the start of the film. A parallel between his fantasy of violence and his reaction to real violence. Now united with his friends, they meander around Paris, waiting for the morning trains to arrive, when they see a news report on stacked television screens in what I'm guessing is a bus station, but honestly I'm not sure. The screens form together into one larger image as the message, Abdel Echaha dies, is shown to them in huge text. Kassovitz focuses entirely on the screens, and for a time they take up the entire frame. The next shot is a close-up of Vinz, showing us that this is in his perspective. With this simple framing choice, Kassovitz tells us that Vinz's negative reaction to violence is entirely forgotten about. Now all he can focus on or think about is the death of his friend. Vinz leaves and finds two cops standing on the street. He shoots one of them, and they fly backwards in a cartoonish 80s action movie fashion, smashing the glass behind them. Only for the scene to pull back and reveal it was all a fantasy, that Vinz never actually shot the cop, but just imagined doing so out of some need for vengeance. He wants revenge for Abdel and promised to even out the score, so to speak, to his friends. But now we see his violent nature in its true shape. He's not a gun-toting psychopath, and he isn't a gangster either. He's really just a kid playing make-believe. He has a falling out with his friends over this. Saeed and Hubert leave him alone for a while to figure out his own shit. Hubert at this point in the film is totally fed up with Vinz. Hubert is by far the wisest of the group and acts as the voice of reason for them. So throughout the film, there is a clash between Hubert trying to convince Vinz that carrying a gun around is stupid, and Vinz just ignoring him. After leaving Vinz behind, they both encounter some skinheads loitering in an alley, as racists tend to do. A fight starts that Hubert and Saeed will almost definitely lose. When Vinz shows up and saves them by waving his gun around, they drag a skinhead into an alley, and Vinz, overtaken with excitement, points the gun at him, threatening to shoot him just to prove to his friends that he has it in him. Hubert knows Vinz doesn't have it in him to kill a man, and uses some reverse psychology to make Vinz realise this. He lets the skinhead go. This 4-part sequence of events, the cinema, the shooting at the club, the cop flying away, and the skinhead alleyway situation, mark a mental journey for Vinz. Within his character arc, he goes from violent daydreams, bragging about a gun he found, and his ability to take a life, to growing as a person, and seeing the world around him more clearly, in a short span of time. Time plays a big part in this film. Over the course of it, the exact time will flash on screen to show you just how much can change in the span of 24 hours. HAINE gives us insight into the mind of a young man who wants to be like Travis and could very well turn out like him, but through listening to his friends and allowing his own mindset to change, he grows as a person and becomes a better person as a result of it. There's a lot to talk about in HAINE. Honestly, I barely scratched the surface with this video, but I don't want to spoil too much. And there's already a good amount of video essays on this film, so I wanted to cover a specific part of it. You should all watch this one. If anything, watch it for the outfits. Honestly, everyone in this film is kitted out, it's fucking insane. Especially Hubert. I want that bomber jacket.